I'm going to turn around and let it be like Scarecrow. The Scarecrow effect. Well, y'all will be glad to know that Winn-Dixie's sales this quarter are going to be up. Mr. Buster's back, and I've already got 3 of them and a butterscotch. I told them their sales have been down the last quarter. They ain't been feeling well and avoiding being sick, and I think he's done passed out 400 of them already this morning. So I'm thankful Winn-Dixie's won't be suffering like they have been this last quarter. What do we need to make mention of before we get rolling this morning? Glad the borders are back. The older borders are back. Safe travels. And your wife told me this morning that y'all were towing a car, and then when you got there, you had to turn in the thing because it wouldn't pull it up the hill. Steep hill.
Yeah.
Steep hill. No, thank you. That's why I'm a beach person. No mountains for me. Miss Margie? Oh.
People scratched her arm on a doorknob or something, and she's bleeding her back.
Over there helping her, or just separately?
This was separately. This was coming out of her house, and then she's going up to us, and she hurt her arm, and she's
good gravy.
There, so she is bleeding a lot. So.
When it rains, it pours. Absolutely. How you feeling? How's your wounded warrior? Fair to partly cloudy. Could be worse. Could be Lori. It's just unprovoked. Yeah, like the little brother you never wanted. Close, right? I just want you to feel good and at home. Anything else before we get rolling this morning? Rusty, can I pick on you to kick us off with a word of prayer?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we have. We thank you, Father, for all the blessings that you've given us. We thank you most of all for Jesus, for he is our greatest blessing. Father, as we open up your word and study, help us to learn and grow. Help us to take it in our heart. Shine your light out around us. Pray for the ones that we mentioned. Pray for the sick. Pray for those who are away because of work or travel. Bring them back to us. Father, watch over us in this time. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. All right, if you want to open to the Old Testament book of Hosea, we're going to kick off there this morning. Hosea chapter 1, verse 1 is where we're going to be. Do you mind? Yeah, I was going to say that glare is like, it actually is helpful because then I don't have to see John Henry as well. There's a glare, I don't have to look at him, but I guess now I'll have to look at him. That's just the burden I have to carry, having to eyeball him. I'm pretty brave from 50 feet away. If you notice with an exit strategy, I am really brave 50 feet away from you. All right, the book of Hosea. I'm just going to tell you, this is going to hurt. A lot of emotion in this book, and the applications we'll make, this one's going to sting a little bit. We're going to go from the mountaintop of the resurrection, and if it had been me, I was going to stay on the mountaintop. We were going to roll into Acts, but Bill wants us to suffer for the kingdom's sake and decided we needed to. It was actually a suggestion that I went and read, and then I was like, yep, that'll do. That'll do. So it's going to be really good. We're going to read it. Like I said, if you don't have a lot of familiarity with it, you don't have to get very far into it to figure out where we're headed. And we're just going to read the first chapter together this morning. I kind of want this morning to be a little bit more of an introduction to I think it's helpful for you to just plunge into chapter 1, verse 1 to kind of have an idea. Where are we? Where are we in time? Who are we talking to? that kind of thing. But I want to go ahead and get it in front of you, what it is we're going to be covering by reading these first 11 verses together of chapter 1. Does that work for you guys? Miss Yvonne, can you do 1 through 7? And then Miss Lori, will you do 8 through the end? I just want to hear your two different translations. All right, here we go. 1 through 7, and then 8 through 11.
The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, son of Beeri, during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and during the reign of Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go, marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her. For like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord." So he married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call him Jezreel, because I will soon punish the house of Jehu for the massacre of Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of Israel. And that day I will break Israel's bow in the valley of Jezreel." Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call her Lo Ruhamah, which means not loved, for I will no longer show love to Israel, that I should at all forget them. Yet I will show love to Judah, and I will save them, not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses or horsemen, but I, the Lord their God, will save them."
After Gomer had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, she again became pregnant and gave birth to a second son. And the Lord said, "Name him Lo-Ami, not my people, for Israel is not my people, and I am not their God. Yet the time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too many to count. Then at the place where they were told, 'You are not my people,' it will be said, 'You are children of the living God.' Then the people of Judah and Israel will unite together. They will choose one leader for themselves, and they will return from exile together. What a day that will be, the day of Jezreel, when God will again plant his people in his land. In that day you will call your brothers Ami, my people, and you will call your sisters Ruhamah, the ones I love."
Really, chapter 1 is kind of an overview of the entire thing. Like if you didn't have the rest of it, you'd almost be okay because of what chapter 1 kind of sets in front of you. I don't know how familiar all of you guys are with this book or if you've read it before, but can you imagine? I'm a jealous dude. All I've been thinking about is preparing for this class and whatever. I love my wife and I don't want anybody else messing around with her. And the concept of this and the purpose behind it, like I said, a lot of emotion in this book, and the message behind it, it's going to be powerful. Let's do a little bit about the setting. Chapter 1, verse 1. We're coming to Hosea. Thanks to a comment by Bill, I went digging on the name. Hosea, Joshua, and Jesus are related, but not exactly the same. In fact, did you know that Joshua's name was actually Hosea? And then Moses changes his name from Hosea, the son of Nun, to Joshua. And it's a subtle difference. The name Hosea means salvation. Adding that Yah to it is God is salvation. That's the difference between Hosea and Yeshua, Yahshua. All of those names are in the same wheelhouse. That's Numbers 13 verse 16. So I had not a clue about that, but they're all very much related or have a same root word. If I was to ask you any of those list of names of the kings in verse 1, do any of them ring a bell to you? Some may be more popular than others. Which ones maybe stand out a little bit more? Hezekiah, probably one of the more popular ones that you might would grab a hold of. We're not too far removed from going through some of these kings not too long ago. The Jeroboam that's mentioned, you need to know that's Jeroboam the second. That's not the first one. And there's some various things about him that we could talk about. Where we are in time. If I could do a quick Bible lesson, and those kids that went through the timeline, y'all probably remember all that glorious time spent. It's beneficial, though. It is, really. It gives you stuff to hang your hat on. We're in the frame of time where there's still Israel and there's still Judah. They are the divided kingdom. And do y'all remember from our kings study, how many good kings were there in the north? It's the same amount of times that I beat John Henry in arm wrestling. None, right? None in the north. We ride the roller coaster in the south. So both of these kingdoms still exist. Timeline-wise, though, you know that Israel and Judah don't get destroyed at the same time. Bible history lesson, does anybody remember the name of the country or nation that's going to come first and take Israel out of play? Anybody know what kingdom that would be? The Assyrians. They're not there yet. They're not there yet. In fact, where we are in time is Israel is paying tribute money to them right now. In order to kind of keep them off their backs, they are sending large piles of money to keep Assyria basically happy. They're also doing that a little bit for Egypt, kind of somewhat related, but unrelated. Egypt is going to come up in this book a little bit. Egypt is often referred to as a broken reed. Be careful of leaning on a broken reed. What happens if you lean on a broken reed? Not only does it snap and you break, but when you fall, you impale yourself. And so there's a few different times in their history that, Egypt will come save us and we'll send them money. And it's not how it works out. So where we are kind of in time is in the period of prophets are already calling the shot of y'all better get right or Assyria is coming. Judgment day is coming. A great day that even Hosea will mention is coming. Judgment day is coming. He even mentioned a little bit in chapter 1 that I'll spare Judah temporarily. Now we do not, that's about 722. That's a time frame. Assyria comes about 722. Does anybody, this is unrelated, but just to get the timeline in front of you, does anybody remember the other kingdom that comes and wipes out Judah a little over 100 years later? Assyria is the first one. Assyria comes and gets Israel. Who comes and gets Judah? Babylon. They're right in the same amount of time that the Daniel study would have Persia in there. Babylon is the one that's going to come and wipe out, and that's about 586, 605-ish to 586-ish. But I just want you to know where we are in time. We're not quite there. Hosea is like 740, 760 to 722, somewhere around in there. The Syrians are on their way. God's calling the shot. Punishment is coming. And Hosea has got the mission of go be my spokesman. Now, how is he going to be the Lord's spokesman? I did a little digging on this. Let me give you a couple of passages. Who else wants to read this morning? Get some volunteers. Kevin, will you do Jeremiah 27, verse 27? Anybody else want to read this morning? You mind? Ezekiel 4, 1 through 4. And it's a simple point, but I just want you to see. Let me ask you before I have these fellows read it. Can you imagine being Hosea? From our reading this morning or from your previous study, basically in chapter 1, what has God asked Hosea to go do? Marry a prostitute. Billy used a little bit more colorful word. But it's right. Wes, what are you going to? Can you imagine? I mean, and as you read, it's not just a mission where he has no affection for her. Hosea marries her and he loves her. It's not like just a blind, cold mission. He loves her. He falls in love with the woman and has at least one kid with her that is his. And can you imagine being called to do this mission? But this is a day and time where a prophet wasn't just a prophet. That a lot of times the prophet himself was a message, not just the words he spoke. For example, Jeremiah 27. Did I give you the wrong passage?
No, it's 27 in my Bible.
Did I write it down wrong?
We had the wrong verse.
Maybe it's 17. Yeah, there sure is not. Is it 37? 37? Nope, not one there either. All right, I don't have that one. I jotted it down wrong. I got 27. Now, it's just where it basically, he's asked to like put something around his shoulders. One time he gets thrown in a pit. I mean, it's like, basically, it's a visual symbol of, it wasn't just the message he had to do. He's almost acting something out that God's called him to do as part of his message. Ezekiel is a little bit more clear. And this is just a snippet of all the things Ezekiel has to do. But let me just give you chapter 4, 1 through 4 of that one. I'll see if I can find out my Jeremiah passage.
You also, son of man, take a clay tablet and lay it before you, and portray on it a city, Jerusalem. Lay siege against it, build a siege wall against it, and heap up a mound against it. Set camps against it also, and place battering rams against it all around. Moreover, take for yourself an iron plate, and set it as an iron wall between you and the city. Set your face against it, and it shall be besieged, and you shall lay siege against it. This will be a sign to the house of Israel. Lie also on your left side, and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon it. According to the number of the days that you lie on it, you shall hear their iniquity.
Just to give you a quick synopsis, and you don't get it all, but you get some of it. There's a period of time he just sits out there saying nothing, like it's a spectacle. People are just probably walking by like, what's he doing out here? He's going to be out there for a while. When we get to the section he's in now, he basically takes these rocks and builds a small model of Jerusalem. And he's basically acting it out like, knock part of the walls down and siege this and whatever. He sits on dung and cooks his meals over it. He doesn't eat. I forgot when we did this study, but he doesn't eat for like, do you remember how long it was?
Jeremiah 6:6.
Is it 6:6 that I was thinking about him being a son? But Ezekiel, he like basically withers away to nothing. He's fasting and doing this, playing with this model in front of the people. It's not just the message that Ezekiel has. He himself, like, you want to see what waste is going to, when they siege your city and surround it and cut off food. So Ezekiel's literally called to an extreme fast where like his bones are almost wasting away as a sign to the people. And that's all I'm trying. And the one we mentioned on Wednesday night, Jonah. Jonah doesn't just have a message. Jonah is a message. Jonah gets swallowed by a fish in his rebellion. I imagine when he walks in the city, if you spent multiple days inside there, a lot of people believe the acid that would have been there, like his complexion he's either bleached out or he's got legions on. So when he comes in and says 40 days and God's going to destroy you, it wasn't just their message. They themselves were a message. Well, do you see something similar with Hosea? It wasn't just he's going to come and say, hey, y'all have been unfaithful to the Lord. How is he going to act this out and demonstrate it? He's going to live it. Does that give a little credibility to the message? And I imagine, and I'm just guessing, but if he's known as a prophet, do you imagine other people know what's going on? Does stuff like this happen in a corner? There goes Hosea's wife again. Just to give you a little bit of, one of the things I did as I was reading through it is I went and highlighted the word either faithful or unfaithful or loyal or something. Basically the word hesed or faithfulness or loyalty is going to be a key theme of the book. Y'all have been unfaithful. She's going to be an unfaithful wife. And it's going to be contrasted with God's loyal love or faithful love. The only reason, and we already know where we're going to go, is he's going to go get her back. The only reason God takes us back is because we're worthy of it. It's because his loyal love is stronger than our infidelity. God's faithfulness is stronger than our unfaithfulness. And that is a message that's been grabbing a hold of me as I've been preparing for this. Your sin is not mightier than his love that he has for you. is going to be one of the main. I mean, so as ugly as what he has to live, there is kind of a light at the end of it. You even get that at the end of chapter 1, do you not? Just a little bit of a glimpse of, hey, the day that they get destroyed is going to be the same place that Israel and Judah are going to come back. They're going to be one. We're going to have one leader. What's all that sound like a foreshadowing of? Jesus. Everybody coming together under this one leader. At least it's a nod towards that great day, I think, figuratively in the future. Your takeaways, either your previous knowledge or as we've read this chapter before we even launch into it, what's your, a lot of times I ask you guys to put yourself in the story. What if you were Hosea? What if you're Gomer? What if, here you are, you're on display for the whole world. You got any thoughts or takeaways as you analyze this before we jump into the parts that I want to kind of break down in chapter 1 this morning?
Long suffering,
Why do you say that, G-Paul?
because he kept taking her back, and the Lord kept forgiving.
I'm going to point out it's not just one kid, it's multiple kids, and he endures. One of the things, he could have put her away after the first one, right? Here's his get out of jail free card. Run away. And we even talk about that God gives New Testament applications that there is a right to divorce under, and some people look at that, man, finally I got what I wanted. And whatever. Hosea has his get out of jail. Like, does he have a right to put her away? Oh, undeniably so. And is that his desire? Long suffering, loyalty, love, true love and faithfulness. He loves this woman. And again, don't forget what the message behind it is. That's how much God loves us.
God might call you to do something difficult.
Sure.
Also, God is the spurned husband here.
That's right.
So that the hurt that we believe Hosea feels is probably analogous to the hurt that God feels.
Oh, I think no doubt that's the message. Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking like just in a similar way, the prodigal son in the New Testament, what would it have been like for that father to have a son demand his inheritance and then basically leave? Like, I don't even want to be a part of this anymore. Just give it to me, and leaves. But what is the father doing? In order to see the son a long way off, what does that tell you the father has been doing? He's watching. The only way you see him a long way off is you've been looking for him. It's today the day he comes home. And what's the father's reaction when the son comes home? Joy. Runs to him, greets him. Does it matter what? Remember, there's just so many parallels. You took me there. The son has a rehearsed apology, right? And what we get his rehearsal. This is what I'm going to say. I'm not even worthy to be in your house. Make me as one of your hired servants, whatever. And when he gets there and begins to do the rehearsed apology, his father doesn't even let him finish all of it. Does it matter what he had done in the past? Do you see anything of that in Hosea about where we're going to go with this? Ms. Rhonda?
Just kept coming back to me, the way we judge people. And we never know what God's doing. And we need to leave a lot to God. Yes, absolutely, we need to go to the scriptures with them. But at the end of the day, let God judge them.
And let him work on, they may be in a trial, they may be in a valley. He may, outside looking in, you're looking at this, and this is disaster. And if I read the story right, Gomer being restored, Gomer being the faithful wife again, and them possibly having a happy ever after. You never know where the story may end.
And the other thing was, the United States kept coming back to me throughout this whole, going away, and they're really persecuted before they're brought back.
Mm.
Where are we?
I mean, we're not Israel, but it seemed like we were a nation founded on godly principles that wanted to honor God. And I feel like in various ways, God has blessed our nation. But if we get any lesson from biblical stories is God doesn't just continue. You can't ignore God and throw him to the side and him just keep blessing you. If there's ever a wake-up call, just to take it for granted that, well, we're lived in a blessed nation with the freedoms we have and whatever. You keep throwing God and denying him and not even wanting to retain him in your I'm kind of misquoting Romans 1, but they didn't, what is that? Somebody help me out here. They did not like to,
Your knowledge.
but yeah,
Don't want to retain God in your knowledge.
yeah, just, he's not part of it. And so you keep doing that. And basically Romans 1 says, then expect some certain, and that's what we're living. So don't take it for granted that would be there.
Another thing it seems like it shouts is the great lengths that God will go to help us get it.
Okay.
I mean, think about, okay, people that hear the gospel don't want to obey. Can you hear him saying to us, well, what do you want me to do?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jesus, I'm giving you him. And look at what he's doing with Hosea. He doesn't want to destroy him. He's trying to help Israel, and he's trying to help them get it.
The whole purpose of having the prophet, the whole purpose of making Hosea go through this is hopefully begging them, I don't want 722 to happen. I'm calling my shot that it will. And here, if you don't think that there's the will of God in the absolutes. Was God a liar when he had Jonah say 40 days and Nineveh was going to be destroyed? Was God a liar? But in 40 days, so do you think 722 had to happen? Did 586 or 605 of the Babylonians have to? In fact, God's begging them, be faithful to me in this whole, but because he knows humankind and he knows the future, and that's why we get the prophecies of Cyrus doing what he's going to do with the Persians and some of that. I mean, he already knows, but he's still in his heart. That's the long suffering. How about the long suffering of is maybe they'll come back today. They're a harlot today, but maybe they'll come back tomorrow. Maybe the patience of that to roll the story out. And there is a remnant that does, and I think that's kind of a saving grace is not all of them had defiled their garments. If I could use New Testament, not all Israel was Israel, but some of them were, kind of thing. There were the faithful few that are loyal in the midst of this and are thankful.
Jezreel is either part of Galilee or just south of it.
So I had some things. All right, let's go and get to some of this. So Hosea is commissioned, go marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her. For like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of, what do you have? Or something along the lines. Unfaithfulness to the Lord. What else do you have other than unfaithfulness to the Lord? Your version says great whoredom. And that's the term that Billy used. That old King James ain't pulling any punches, is it? That's what and I want to make this clear because it's going to come up later. It's not just that you're sleeping around. You're doing it for pay. You're unfaithful because you think you're going to get something else out of it, which it's not love. It's not like, oh, my heart just, I was just seduced away and I just loved it. No, I'm going to be unfaithful because of what I get paid for it. And in their mind, it was, we're going to forsake the Lord because we're getting more out of Assyria. We're getting more out of Baal or Baal. These foreign gods, they're doing more for us or going to do more for us than God will. We're doing it. We're cheating for pay. It's whoredom. It's not just an affair. It's prostitution. And that's a subtle, but to me, profound difference in their mentality of what he's calling on the carpet here. So he marries Gomer. And it says, and I think this is a key difference, verse 3. She conceived and bore him a son, right? Bore him a son. Notice, and we're going to come back to Jezreel here in a second. Verse 6, is it worded slightly differently? My version says Gomer conceived again. Missing there is bore him a son. First son's name is Jezreel after this valley of Jezreel. Second child's name, the daughter, is what? Lo Ruhama, which means not love. What'd you say?
Mine says no mercy.
No mercy. No love, no mercy, no fidelity there. It's all in the same. But it's not bore him a son. She just got pregnant again. After that, in verse 8, after she weans Lo Ruhama, what does she do? Has another kid. Bore him a son? No. she gets pregnant again, and this kid's name is Lo-Ami, which means not mine, not my people. And all of this is going to be, even their names are prophecy. So let's go back to this Jezreel. Specifically called out in the text is punish the house of Jehu for the massacre at Jezreel. Let me give you some other Jezreel things. Jezreel is the location when Deborah was a deliverer. That valley of Jezreel. Gideon as a judge. Y'all remember anything about Gideon? And his 300, where, if you got too many, y'all will think you do it. And then the guys that knew how to drink the right way. And what are you doing? Like the throwing the pots down or whatever. That's the valley of Jezreel. It's very closely associated. It's in the same valley as the valley of Armageddon. I mean, it's a very popular. It's where Saul dies at the hands of the Philistines in the valley of Jezreel. It's the same location where Jezebel is thrown out of the window and judged there. So all of these like judgment, like Saul being judged, Jezebel being judged, Gideon as a judge, Deborah as a judge, is all happening in Jezreel. It's like if you're a Jewish mind and no Jewish history, like when you hear Jezreel, it's like judgment, judgment, judgment. Like this is the valley of judgment. Jehu is a former king of Israel. He kills Joram, Amaziah, and Jezebel, 70 sons of Ahab in the city of Jezreel. And even though he's kind of doing it for God, he kind of goes like AWOL ballistic in his way of doing it. Like it's a violent kind of thing that, Jehu the Avenger, he kind of gets his own punishment for going overboard somewhat. So that's the name your first kid Jezreel, because basically I'm going to break your back. I'm going to break your bow, your symbol of strength and army and power. What am I going to do with your bow? Your ability to attack. What am I going to do with it? I'm breaking it. Judgment. Name your first kid judgment of the Lord in the valley of Jezreel. So every time you call your son's name, what imagery is coming to mind? You mean like this is where like I'm emphasizing it, but like I don't know that I can grasp. You can study Bible stories and separate yourself from the people that lived them, but y'all. And similar to Bill's comment, so as bad as I'm feeling for Hosea to live this, what's really the point? Feel sorry for Hosea? It is. But what's the point behind that? Feel sorry for Hosea. What's the point?
This is what you're doing to God.
This is how God feels. As frustrated and angry as I'm going to be at Gomer, guess who the Gomer of this story is? Who's the Gomer of this story? I am. So as frustrated as you are about the whore, guess who the prostitute of the story is? And if I can just go ahead and preach here a little bit, every time that I throw God aside because of something I want to do, because I get something out of it, when I choose me over him because it's more fun, or I get something out of it, or I get more finance, I get more notoriety, I get more power, I get whatever, when I choose me over him, I am the Gomer. That's, like I said, when I said this is going to sting a little bit, this is going to sting, but at the same time, I want you to be confronted with being a Gomer. Boy, I want to shout from the rooftops, though, we have a God who is Hosea, who never stops loving and never quits long suffering and never stops loving and comes. Where are you going to go, Mr. West?
Makes me feel like we're Gomer. So every time we throw rocks at somebody else, you just need to find them.
Well, and I think that's maybe where Ms. Ronda's going about us judging others. Well, just because I ain't been Gomer today, which you know what I mean? I'm probably Gomer multiple times. You know what I mean? So when I'm throwing my rocks, when you're Gomer, who's Gomer throwing rocks at? You know, who's Gomer going to compare and say, well, so-and-so is worse than me? It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. All right. So that's the first son, Jezreel. Gomer conceives again. and gives birth to not loved. Or was it yours that said, Kevin, like no mercy there? And I think it's that same concept, that same word for love is fidelity, mercy, faithfulness is all kind of part of that. For I will no longer show love to Israel, verse 6, that I should at all. I have forgive them. What other words do you have there at the end of verse 6? As much as we're going to shout the love of God in this book, does God have a point where he'll draw the line and say no more? Will God judge? As much as we're going to shout the grace and the love of God, is it equally God and equally justice and equally righteous that he will reach a point, he says, no more grace? He's going to be glorified in your salvation or your judgment. But he will reach a point where he says, I cannot ignore this any longer. I'll show all the grace for as long as I can. I'll send prophet after prophet. I'll come by you. I'll do everything. But there is going to come a day where he says, no more. And it's like, remember the sermon we had not too long ago about it, we don't think of it, but is God capable of hate? So I preached a sermon about God hates the sin and loves the sinner. Well, there's passages that show pretty clearly, no, God hates the sinner as well. You can't stay in rebellion and not be judged. And he flat out says, I'm no longer going to show you love, Israel. I'm naming my daughter no love, no more mercy, no more fidelity, no more faithfulness. Yet, verse 7, you kind of get a little blip of hope. Yet I will show love to Judah and I'll save them. And that's, I think, a reference to when the Assyrians come and they just smite. That's a good word. Smite me, almighty smiter, kind of thing. And they just come in and they're going to wipe out. We're going to wipe out Israel. That's where they get to the door of Jerusalem. Do you remember? And a prayer gets prayed. And in one night, the angel of the Lord destroys 185,000 Assyrians. And that's Chris Lynn's favorite passage where they wake up and find themselves dead kind of thing. And it's the song that we sing, the battle belongs to the Lord. It's right out of this text. I will show love to Judah and I'm going to save them, not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses or horsemen, but I, the Lord, their God, will save them. The battle is not because you want it. This is Gideon here. It's also when the Assyrians are going to come and man, they're powerful. Capital city of Nineveh. First form of crucifixion is the Assyrians. They would impale people on stakes and lift them up. The Romans perfected it. The Assyrians were the first to do it, where they'd impale you and hang you on a pole. The Assyrians would take a head count when they conquered a city, literally. They would chop the heads off and make a pile and stack them all up. They're the ones, and it's in prophecy in various places, where they would drive the bone through their jaw and tie all the people together and lead them and parade them back. And the crazy thing is, the reason we know all this stuff is that's what they decorated their palace walls with. We know this, and we've got, archaeological finds and pictures of the Assyrians. They were some bad mamma jammas, and they wipe out Israel. And throw it in your Bible passages. Lord, when are you going to do something? And the Lord says, okay, I'm coming. Whoa, Lord, them? It's all of the Bible story. It's all in here. So they're coming, but he saves Judah in one night with one angel. Now, if one angel can take on 185,000, what's too hard for the Lord? So you get a little glimmer of hope there with not loved. So after she has that kid, Gomer has Lo Ruhamah. Or that is Lo Ruhamah. Lo Ami, which means, so you got not love, that's Lo Ruhamah. What's Lo Ami mean? Not my people. For you are not my people, and I am not your God. Now, is that true? Right? We've reached a point where he has said, not mine. But the end of the book, and it's interesting because I don't know how your Bible broke it up. some of your versions have chapter 2, verse 1, and others kind of included at the end of chapter 1, right? Because you were reading into chapter 2, verse 1 in my translation that had, say of your brothers, my people, and of your sister, my loved one. So you got to get that just a little. So you're not my people, I'm not your God. Is that true? As long as you continue, and when I send these people, is that true? Does it stay true? And that's where I'm behold, here, the only thing I can wrap this up in my brain, behold the goodness and severity of the Lord. That's all. How do you get your brain wrapped around both of these concepts? That where he says, I don't love you, you're not my people. And he gets to that point, otherwise he couldn't judge them, right? And they suffer. People suffer. People get judged. People waste away to cities being surrounded and running out of food, and people get impacted. People die. Judgment comes. This is not just neat and tidy. Oh, we just talk about judgment. Battles happen and people die. Not my people. I don't love you. This is what it looks like when I remove my hedge of protection around you. You want to see what it looks like when and enter in here a whole concept of church discipline. Okay, you don't want me? I'll remove myself from you. See how you like it, Romans 1 verse 2, chapter 1 and chapter 2. How do I get my head wrapped around that in? And he's going to come back and he is going to buy them back and they are his people.
But where does he say that takes place? That's what was curious to me. I was looking on the map and it looks like it's Galilee.
Okay.
Because Jezreel's either part of Galilee or just south of it. Well, who came out of Galilee?
Galilee. Oh, I see the connection you're making with that. All right, that's where I'm going to leave you. We'll pick up a little bit more with the end of verse 1, and then we're going to roll into kind of now chapter 2 and what his response is.
My great grandmother.